Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. It is Saturday, August 12th, and we're on another episode of Iron Radio. This is Phil Stevens, strength coach, powerlifter, Highland Games athlete. So, that's
Boxer?
it. Boxer, all that stuff. Oh, and I got a telemarketer calling me.
Oh.
So, bad timing. Yep, decline that.
This is Dr. Mike T. Nelson. So far, no telemarketers calling me this morning yet. Associate Professor of the Carrick Institute, creator of the Flex Diet Cert and the Physiologic Flexibility Cert. PhysFlex Cert will be open again this coming fall.
This is Coach Durrell from Strength Drills in Kansas City. Coach weightlifting, powerlifting, CrossFit back in the day. I think it's illegal for me to say that now, but and some strongman, and then just back to gym owning.
Cool. And this is Lonnie Lowry. I'm a food industry consultant, exercise physiology and nutrition prof of about 20 years, and former competitive bodybuilder.
There we go.
All right. All right. We're going to start. Yeah, we're going to start with a little dose of salt for everybody this morning. This is just feeding my social media fire. I got an article from my wife, and it's titled, "What is Berberine? The supplement dubbed Nature's Ozempic for possible weight loss benefits." Now, this is from Forbes magazine, and to the credit of the science writer here, Ariana Johnson, she does a pretty good job. It's not her fault that the internet is so backward. It's because it says, but evidence is limited. So here we go. Top line, Berberine, also known as Nature's Ozempic. Okay, stop. No, it's not. No, it's not. Has taken TikTok by storm with thousands of videos claiming blah, blah, blah. I'm not even going to bore you. It says the supplement has gone viral on TikTok with creators boasting about the pill's weight loss and metabolic boosting effects. All right, let's back up again. Creators? That makes it sound like it's the, drug creators or the scientists that discovered, in this case, berberine. Mm-hmm. No, they mean content creators. Let's be honest. Content creators, its popularity has been heightened amid weight loss and diabetes drug shortages that the FDA has been talking about, right? Like Ozempic and some of those related GLP-1 agonists. Medline Plus lists the supplement as quote-unquote possibly effective, meaning there's limited clinical evidence for use in diabetes, canker sores, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and polycystic ovary syndrome. But it doesn't list weight loss as a potential benefit. Now, it's not that berberine has nothing to do with weight loss, but I like immediately, right, this Ariana Johnson is like, that's not what it does, right? You're doubling down. And here's, Mike was asking before we hit record, where are they getting the connection with Ozempic or these GLP-1 meds? It says berberine's low price point in comparison to weight loss drugs makes it appealing. A 30-day supply of Ozempic costs nearly $1,200, whereas the berberine could be about $10. So it's the shortage that's going on because everybody wants to jump on this bandwagon and lose 15 or 20% of their body weight, I guess. And this is a cheap, natural, supposed alternative. Now, here's something that I don't really agree with the way the article is set up. It says tangent. I would argue, no, this is the main point. But tangent, contrary to its nickname, berberine works differently from Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. I can't even keep track of all these names, which are GLP-1 receptor agonists that suppress appetite, and they talk about by several, hormonal mechanisms. Berberine works by activating AMP-activated protein kinase. So AMPK, Mike's of course very familiar with that, an enzyme in cells that helps regulate energy expenditure and fat metabolism. So yeah, they say that's the tangent. I say that's the main point. It's got nothing to do with these meds.
It's not even the same mechanism theoretically.
It's not exactly. It doesn't work the same way at all. Anyway, I was just doing a little bit of digging. So I pulled a paper here from Asbaghi, Asbaghi, I think they're Iranian researchers, the effect of berberine supplementation on obesity parameters, inflammation, and liver function enzymes, a systematic review and meta-analysis. So I thought, let's go to a study of studies, what's out there. They looked at 12 studies. Berberine treatment moderately, but statistically significantly, did decrease body weight by about 2 kilos. It dropped waist circumference by about 1 centimeter. And again, this is a study of other studies, right? So the doses are going to vary in the durations. They're just looking at overall effects. They concluded, significant reduction, small but significant in body weight, waist circumference, and C-reactive protein, so a marker of inflammation. No effect on liver enzymes. Now, if you pull select quotes from here, it says, there are some phytochemicals or nutraceuticals that include capsaicin, resveratrol, curcumin, EGCG, and berberine that do have effects on thermogenesis. Okay, jack your metabolism, whatever, improve fat burning. I do find it curious that they add berberine to this list of things that have probably gotten much more attention. But okay, it says different parts of the plant have different therapeutic effects. Berberine is an alkaloid. A meta-analysis on patients with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So that's like 1 out of 3 people, I think, right, have like metabolic syndrome now. They don't exercise. Their liver's fatty. It's a kind of an indicator, I think, a sign that their whole metabolism is just very poor. Berberine intake was associated with improvement in blood sugar control, serum cholesterol, and liver function. Now, this new meta-analysis says really nothing going on with liver function, though. However, some studies could not confirm such effects. There is evidence suggesting that the activation of AMPK signaling pathway, which is a key regulator of energy metabolism, can be affected by berberine. So to me, that's about the best thing it's got going on for it, other than it blocks, I guess, or it downregulates pro-inflammatory genes that are part of like fat cell, differentiation. So I don't know. When I see this stuff, and I have another one I'm not going to bore everybody with this week. It was kind of pile on this week. In my experience, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but when I look at a lot of these botanicals, it seems like almost all of them are anti-inflammatory or they lower blood sugar in some way. I want to see something else, right? There was another herb that came out of China. Maybe I'll talk about it next week. It's just based on mice. And all of these news things, the key to preventing obesity, and it's like, it's a mouse study. They look at little mouse livers. What do you we were just talking about what's our standard for practice. A mouse liver is not going to be it for me. So, I don't know. It's not, just so everybody knows, these are not GLP-1 agonists. They're nothing like them. The berberine. I'm not interested at all, and it's too bad that this is some kind of new wave on TikTok with millions and millions of views, because it has nothing to do with, other than the fact that it might have a mild effect on weight loss based on this one meta-analysis, and that's kind of it. I don't know. And I think it's because there's a shortage of the real meds. This is the hope of natural supplement kind of bodybuilders and people throughout history is, I can find a natural way and get the potency of a drug. Yeah, probably not. Probably not. Yeah.
Drugs are always better.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
Part of it's just the supplements being more unregulated than the medical field. So it's like there are way easier ways to get that profit by just lying than lying, sensationalizing a headline and selling a goofy product that, at some degree, to some point, it doesn't even have to work. You can just count on placebo. As long as people feel good, it's like nothing. You'll outrun that. You'll outrun that case for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. These influencers, I don't even think they're going that deep. Honestly. What you're saying is accurate, I think, of course, but they just want attention. One of them builds on another, and before you know it, how many millions of views? I'd have to go back and look at that. It makes me sad. Little tear emoji. Yeah. Because what? They just want attention. So there's a shortage of the GLP-1 meds. So, okay, let's just pick one of these supplements and and call it nature's Ozempic. Oh, God. No.
Yeah.
You had to pick a drug that berberine is most close to, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate mail for this. It's probably closer to metformin than anything else. And I'm not saying it's identical to metformin. I'm just saying that if you're going to make some outlandish claim that a supplement is like a drug, at least in my brain, that's a little closer, but that doesn't sell, I'm sure.
Yeah, at least insofar as it lowers blood sugar, you
Right.
know, and affects because it does affect your blood lipids. I guess LDL can come down, and stuff like that. It affects LDL receptors in your liver or something. But again, it's even in that meta-analysis, which is fairly recent. What did I say? 12 studies. This is a 2020 paper here. This Iranian paper. Yeah, maybe metformin. I don't know. It's just got nothing to do with Ozempic, and I thought we don't have a huge reach here, but at least it's quality. Our people are going to know.
Yeah.
No, it's not that. That's wrong. Break out the red pen.
The thing is, it's not like the original drug is like there's a lot of side effects coming out about that thing.
Of course.
That's the thing I don't get.
Shocker.
Yeah, it's like, come on. Well, the latest one is like people are like, their stomachs are becoming paralyzed. Like they're having massive stomach issues, and it's like the people are still lining up for this shit.
It's tempting, man. You lose 17% of your body mass, you know?
Well,
I mean,
but like that
body
study that
mass.
came out, like 45% of it was muscle and connective.
Right.
Yeah.
Bone.
Yes.
It's like,
Right.
oh, it's
so
not
little on
worth
body
it.
comp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kills your appetite.
Yeah. The
And
thing
then
I
you don't
worry
eat
about
protein,
is that,
and then you lose a bunch of muscle. Yeah.
yeah. And the thing I worry about is that usual yo-yo diet effect that everybody does. So they'll go on this shit. They'll lose 17% of body fat, and 50% of that's muscle and bone. They go off. They gain it back. So they go on it again. Then they lose 40% of muscle and bone again. It's like this downward spiral to being an octopus, something without a skeleton even. You're just a blob.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about the bone loss. God, yeah. But you're right. I mean, so much of this is weight loss, and that's where the general public stops. They don't think body comp.
Yeah.
They don't think, how much of this. Like, typically when you lose weight from calorie restriction, studies are going to vary. And I know, Mike, you may have a different opinion, but I'm going to paint with a broad brush and say 2/3 of it's fat, 1/3 of it's lean. Like, you do lose lean.
Yes.
And if you try to preserve the lean mass, maybe you even get a better ratio than that. But yeah, this is when you lose weight that fast, and it kills your appetite. And we've had listeners write in and be like, well, wouldn't that kill your protein intake? And wouldn't that accelerate the muscle loss? Yeah, I imagine it could.
Yeah.
So I heard essentially a case. I mean, I know we're kind of getting off topic here, but I heard a case for like using it was essentially based on population, right? So, whatever I saw was like, let me get these numbers wrong, so don't quote me specifically, but it's like maybe 14% of the United States or wherever they were studying, it might not have been the U.S., has a gym membership, right? And I mean, of those 14% who have that gym membership, how many, one, go, two, are on an effective program? So I think you could even effective program and follow like effective nutrition. And I think you could easily make the argument that's under 10% of the population probably. So with that said, you have 90% of the population and a huge chunk of them that are dealing with that have essentially obesity issues. In this case, would you guys consider this an effective use of, the drug, essentially unleashing it on the population to get the obesity numbers down versus, the gym membership? I'll say as a gym owner, it kind of pisses me off that I guarantee there are people who said, I can't afford, my gym membership costs or whatever, who are paying $1,200 a month for this bullshit drug. But I shouldn't say bullshit drug. I mean, it works obviously, but at what cost essentially?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's good.
that.
It's good in that it causes weight loss. I mean, let's be honest. These GLP-1 drugs, but you're like you said, at what cost? Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, that's my question in terms of, I obviously have gone the opposite. I think people should have to train and learn some physical culture stuff. I don't think that is a negative thing, but would it be helpful to at least the United States socially to just at whatever cost get obesity numbers down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, I thought about this too, and it's a good question because the risk of obesity, metabolic syndrome, all that stuff does exacerbate pretty much every disease process and does, at the end affect health and obviously cost and everything else. To me, it would be different if people went on the drug, they got to whatever their ideal body weight is, even if they don't exercise and they don't learn anything, and there is some muscle loss. If they stopped the drug and they would stay at that point, I think you could make an argument that it might be a useful tool.
Oh, heck
The hard
yeah.
part is, I don't think they're going to stay there because they didn't learn anything in the process. They're going to go back to the same habits they did before because, shocker, they're hungry. And then now, like Phil was saying, they're unfortunately, I think, going to be in a worse position than what they were before.
Yeah, that's the problem. So I'm reading it right here. It's there was a total loss of 14 kilograms, and of that 14 kilograms lost, 38% of it was lean tissue. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It looks. I think it's the pace when you lose weight that fast. That to me, my bias is that bodes poorly for lean loss. Right, fat loss is something I've always felt you coax off. You don't rip off in the next month. A dozen pounds in the next month or something. The pace is too aggressive, and you're going to lose muscle tissue.
Well, it's funny. This paper is, or this article is like pro the drug. So they use DEXA to measure this, and then they battle it by saying, well, DEXA is certainly imperfect. It's not the best way to measure body composition.
It's pretty close.
That's
exactly.
What else are you going to use?
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, and I think, ironically then, as we're talking about this, then berberine or some other supplement that might have a mild effect. Like, for what it's worth, if listeners care, I'm not interested in berberine at all. not really. Maybe a little something going on. We were just talking about maybe a little bit lower blood sugar or antioxidant effects or better blood lipids. Well, that's, to Jarrell's point, that's exercise. Exercise requires effort, of course, and so does diet. But I think about, Phil, all the people, you've had clients that had like pre-diabetes or even type 2 diabetes, and you just reversed them right out of there.
Exercise and eating.
Muscle activity, muscle building. So ironically, some of these supplements, if they're a bridge over troubled water while you educate someone and get them moving, get their slug self moving, that's something Joey Antonio used to talk about. He's like, I look at supplements like a bridge over troubled water while you educate people. Because I was one of the people that I'd point out, supplements are just that. They're on top of a diet. Supplements are not sports nutrition. It's not synonymous. And yet I know a lot of people, and I know you guys do too, they use those terms interchangeably. But sports nutrition is about what you eat at your meals. It's not the supplementation. And it's true. Some supplements you can barely obtain through the diet. I get it. You have to supplement it to get at all or an adequate dose. But yeah, maybe some of these things, even though the herbal stuff, the botanical stuff is almost certainly going to be a tiny fraction of these powerful hormonal agonists. Maybe, in the long run, you're better because, like you were saying, you don't yo-yo diet and end up metabolic train wreck with no muscle and everything else a long time later. It's an argument, right, about is yo-yo dieting really, how bad is it? How bad does it leave you at the end? And I know there's been some papers on that. But okay. Yeah, well, I just, like I said, salty when I see this. Oh, it's huge on TikTok. Great. Well, of course, that's where I go for my science news.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
all right.
All those creators, they know exactly what's going on in the science world.
That's right.
They did their research.
in this article, and it's like, and creators say, okay, stop. That makes it sound like the creators of the supplement or the drug or whatever of a product. You mean content creators? Is that your only credential? Because damn, that's not a credential. Yeah. Before we go to break, I just wanted to give a shout out to Sean and Gabby Fairbanks. We all know them. They're helping me on the little nutrition radio podcast, and Gabby's so full of energy. It's funny to watch the guys interact. Sean's is kind of he's very kind of straightforward. Just he kind of talks like a train moves down the track. He just kind of, and she's like, yeah, in the background. It's just funny. But I just wanted to give a shout out to those guys for just being supportive in so many ways. They're helping the podcasts, the Iron Radio podcast and stuff, and in ways that they don't even fully realize. So, thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's go to break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some lifting stuff. Hey, everybody. Iron Radio is back, and in an expanded way. What can you expect? Well, first, you can get it simulcast every week on the nutritionradio.org network, as well as on the original podcast. It'll appear regularly on iTunes, Spotify, and all your favorite podcasting sites. We have a new Iron Radio /Nutrition Radio Facebook page as well. Please check us out. We're even backed up on YouTube. Second, please tell your friends who are longtime loyal listeners that they may see emails that share just the episode link and the show notes. This is a new thing, and we hope it will build community. Third, if you were a supporting member in the past, we may prompt you to resume through PayPal, but we will confirm each and every donor before reinstating that membership category. We'll never just restart your $4 auto payments without agreement from you. And of course, we will accept new members moving forward as well. Starting back slowly and honorably is the goal. And lastly, expect the sister show Nutrition Radio to expand into once weekly 45 to 60-minute episodes with guest co-hosts covering the same nerdy nutrition news that's been broadcast for a few months now in daily 10-minute clips. We hope that an expanded presence will get you the news, education, banter, and guests that's made Iron Radio's community so loyal from the start. You are appreciated.
Okay, we are back. And today, every once in a while I like to peruse the interwebs and see what kind of misinformation is going out there with people asking questions. And this one jumped out to me. So the question was, how many reps of each routine should I perform? The answer by this fitness professional was, there's no defined number of reps for exercise routines, which, okay, I'm good with that. The rule of thumb here is, if you're trying to bulk up, you should go for lower reps and heavier weight. And if you're looking to get lean and trim up, your exercise routine should consist of lower weights, higher reps. A word of advice, just don't pick a weight that's insignificant, but one that challenges you a bit. I got lots of problems with this.
1983?
Yeah, well, no, I can look at this. I'm not sure. Exactly
hey, that's when I started lifting.
And it didn't work back then, Lonnie. So,
and it's not going to now. That's right. Here come more salt. Today's the day of salt.
I mean, it's not a simple question of saying it's the opposite of that, but that's where I would lean. Like, that's one thing I've preached on the show a lot of times. Like, when I was helping, the last guy I did, like, one Mr. Oklahoma. And it only made sense to me. Like, even when I was new to this, it kind of never made sense to me that you would, like, go damn near aerobic with your weights to trim up. That's what they push. Like, Gwyneth Paltrow type lifting.
Oh, no.
And, and one thing I preach to everybody, so if you're leaning up, especially for like a bodybuilding show, or, one of these crazy people that like, I got my 20th high school reunion, I got 2 months to get ready, so they go on a crash diet. You're in a calorie deficit. So you're going to lose, like we just talked about in the beginning part of the show, you're going to lose some muscle. So in my mind, like what I've done with all my physique competitors is we're in a calorie deficit. The one signal in your body that's going to tell it to, I need to keep muscle, is consistently lifting heavy weights still. Like your body's just a machine that does what, like if you quit lifting heavy weights and you're in a calorie deficit, it's going to, well, fuck, I don't need this. So by just consistently lifting heavy-ish, like we're not going to be hitting maxes, but like we need some kind of signal like, oh, this son of a bitch still lifts heavy things like on a regular basis. I better keep some of this if I'm going to survive this life. That's the neat thing about the body is it's like people don't realize it. It's like what you do tells you what it needs to do. It's a creature of habit. Like if you consistently do something it wants to make that easier. The reason we progress in the weight room is if you're lifting heavy all the time, you're going to get stronger because your body's like, shit, this son of a bitch is making me do this a lot. I better adapt so I can survive this activity and make it easy. It's because our bodies are lazy. I've talked about it with other people all the time. People, like, your body will lose. If you can start running, it's going to shed weight to make that activity easier on the system. Yes, to accommodate what you're doing. Yeah, your body wants to be efficient. It's lazy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the beauty. That's why we're able to adapt, is because your body wants to be lazy. It wants to make hard activities easy. And I just never got it. That and like the whole bulking up and like heavyweight low reps. Like, dude, you got calories. Like, if you're adding weight, that is the time. In like off-season powerlifters, when we're done, we're eating, we're adding, we're doing volume because we're given a signal to grow muscle. You know, so I never understood the whole assault yourself when you're at a calorie deficit. You're doing all this damage. Let's not say it's super lightweight, but like a hypertrophy type program, which a lot of people will do in bodybuilding, getting ready for show. Like, you're doing all this potential damage, and you got no calories to fix it. So it's just, I don't know. It drives me.
Phil, I always use the metaphor of your body's like a wagon. If you turn left, the wagon's that you're pulling. The wagon's going to follow you left. You turn right, it's going to follow you right. It's just adaptation specific to what you're doing, right? The specificity principle. It's kind of like what you were saying about yo-yo dieting. Like, people think they can go through this brief period and pay their dues and get this new fancy low body weight. Do you think it's going to stay down there?
Yeah.
You just artificially depress that, you know. And when you go back to your old ways, guess what? The body's going to follow you. People always act like there's this battle of the bulge. I'm not sure it's a battle. It's just your body's doing very obediently, following you, you know, and what you're doing. But to your point about muscle mass, I know I said this back in the day when I was competing, but I would try to always, and I know these numbers are funny to you guys, but this was a lot of weight for me. I would always try to keep my squats at 405 for at least a couple of reps. And I did that even 2 weeks before I competed, right? Yeah. Right through it, because I was hormonally challenged I competed in both natural and open shows. You compete in an open show, you know, a lot of these guys, I mean, I cannot equal, you know, growth hormone before I use a growth hormone every day kind of thing. Yeah. I can't get that lean, but I took a lot of pride that I lost a really high percentage of fat mass. I held on to my muscle mass, and it's because I was squatting heavy, again, for me, right up until almost the time to compete.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was kind of satisfying. So that works. And and to your point, like, or Mike, like 1983, it's funny, is because that's how they used to, let's get toned. What? So you're going to remove the stimulus to retain mass when you're in a calorie deficit?
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck with that.
I tend to use kind of a weightlifting example for at least my weightlifters when this kind of comes up. The Bulgarian team versus really the Russian and Chinese stuff, where the Bulgarians were almost exclusively doing singles, doubles, maybe like triples was high volume for them, right? Versus like the Russian and Chinese teams who do a ton of high rep work, like bodybuilding type work after, like post training, or they do a lot of extra supplemental work. You just look at their physiques, like the old school Bulgarian, the reason it was like almost magical was like these dudes look like nerds. Like,
yeah,
they did not, like, if you saw them in street clothes, they did not look like they lifted weights, and they would do these crazy numbers. But the Russians have, I mean, almost systematically since they were a big, team, have almost always been jacked. Like they don't mess around when it comes to like putting on muscle. So you look at the difference between those. In this case, like drug usage is probably about equal between those two countries. And I know there's some, debate there, but I'd say we could easily say they both were using something.
Yeah.
And you have higher rep work and a focus on higher rep work for building muscle versus singles and double, like heavy singles, doubles, triples, building, and I mean, an impressive amount of not building muscle, considering the load.
Yes. Well, that's the neat thing about strength training. I mean, we can take, like when you're working with weight classed athletes, usually the best thing to do is, fairly heavy, lower rep work. Like, we're just looking to make you stronger, but not make you bigger. Whereas this thing is like, if you want to bulk up, go low weight, high reps. My other caveat with that is like, everybody preaches this to like new lifters. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do some volume and get jacked. And it's like, yeah, but like your max bench press is 68 pounds.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So you're going to do what? 5 sets of 10 with like 22 pounds? You're not going to do shit. And it's like, there's a big difference. And that's what I tell people. Like, a lot of that at the beginning should just be getting stronger. Like, there's a big difference in between doing like 4 sets of 10. If you're a 700 pound squatter, 4 sets of 10 at 500, then 4 sets of 10 at 65 pounds.
At nothing.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, there has to be some context into this, and it's never that way. Like, you can make a bodybuilding program a lot more effective by just being strong first. But yeah,
and you know, I feel like there is, and we all know this, there's a volume requirement for hypertrophy. It's kind of to Jarrell's point about if you just do low, you can get quite strong. I saw a guy. He was a competitive power lifter at Pep's gym, at Bodybuilders Gym in Akron, where I lifted for years and years. And he wasn't even big. And he was getting ready to squat. And I was flabbergasted. The guy's just bobbing up and down with 405, 495. I'm like, what? Yeah. And I think because he's purposely trying not to hypertrophy. So, yeah, there is that volume requirement for size, but it's not as high as what you were saying on the get-go, right? Obviously. This is not, you know, sets of 25 reps and we're going to do toning, whatever the hell that means. That's not what we're talking about. Yeah, and you're right. The best bodybuilders, well, look at guys like Mike Francois. You know, they go to West Side, they get strong as hell, and they're so massive, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a local gym owner here. He lifted like that, what you're talking about, like umpteen sets of 20 reps plus all the time.
Yeah.
And he was always like small and lean. And over the years, my brother and I, we started, you know, those power lifters are, I like that look, you know, so we start lifting heavier. We start eating like crazy, even when we're not hungry. All this stuff that we talked about over the years, right? Yeah. You guys all know. And we just blew past this guy over the years by like 50 pounds. And I mean muscle mass, you know, all those years later, he's the same dude. And meanwhile, you know, now we're competing in regional competitions and stuff because we got big, go figure, because there's a certain intensity and weight requirement there. And he competed. I'm sure he was like bantamweight or something.
Yeah.
That was not my goal. I always wanted to be a light heavyweight, you know, and eventually that'll happen. But yeah, you can't do that with, even though the acute protein synthesis stuff, I know Stu Phillips says, you can like 30% loads and do like 23, 25 reps and you can get similar like acute muscle protein synthesis. But in the real world, that just makes people stringy. I don't know. Yeah. You just don't get huge doing that unless you're on lots of drugs.
Well, and that's even the difference we've seen in bodybuilders that lift heavy. I mean, like, we've talked about it for years. It's the base build. And those ones that lifted heavy, like you got of course, they're all on drugs. We all know this. And there's a big difference in the ones that have been around for a decade and have been really lifting and the ones that just looks like somebody took an air pump and blew them up. You know, there's a there's a density to it. Like, look at Dorian Yates. I mean, dude was jacked and
versus
strong. And he brought that power building, you know, made it prevalent. And it's just the difference there is. Like, there's a difference in doing 10 reps with 315 on a bent over row and 10 reps with 135. It's going to create a different structure, you know, and you're just going to look massive and substantial. So, and I don't know, the one that bothers me always is the miscommunication of stuff when people are trying to get lean. And they really try and turn everything. They try and turn all lifting into a cardiovascular activity. Now, do you need some cardio? Yes, but it can be separate from your lifting. And and the lifting in itself, in my opinion, like, you have limited resources when you're dieting. So just make the training spot on. Like, lift pretty heavy, you can't handle the volume. Just do enough to give that stimulus to keep the muscle, and then go do your cardio. But you need to have those heavy weights. Like right now, I'm just in this, don't know what I'm doing. And so basically I just go in every week and I lift heavyish. I don't have a goal aside from I want to get somewhere in that 80% range because I'm getting older and I just want to keep as much bone and muscle as I got. And I know to do that, I can do that with fairly low volume and fairly high intensity. I'm not maxing out. Like I don't go over 80%, but I know if I hit that, if I can consistently go in a squat, deadlift, and bench 80%, if I want to do a meet, I'm not far away, and I'm keeping as much muscle as I can. And, yeah.
Well, that's the other part. People forget that if you've ever tried to compare the amount of volume you can do in a caloric surplus versus a deficit, you'll very quickly realize, hey, shocker, you can do more when you're in a caloric surplus.
Yeah.
And quality is usually better. So I think sometimes people view training and nutrition as like two separate worlds and forget how much they're associated with each other, which again, that sounds obvious to everyone who's listening to this show. But when you're eating more, like you can do more volume, you can do more work. Like even for, if I'm really trying to push my VO2 max up, like I do better being in a caloric surplus, even for that goal.
Yeah.
It just appears for whatever reason, your body doesn't want to take body fat to fuel those types of things.
Yes.
It just seems like for whatever reason, I don't understand it entirely. Maybe you guys have thoughts, but being in a caloric surplus, and again, you don't have to be like 2,000 calories over, the literature is debatable, but probably at least, 200, 300, 400, 500 calories above, which is very hard to figure out. But to help with that, I just have people really monitor their volume of lifting, and I'll make some of their sets open-ended, meaning that if you feel good on this day and you can do more quality work, then by all means do it. Yeah. And once we see that that's going well, hey, we'll bump your calories up a little bit more. Oh, you're able to do a little bit more. Your density got better. Great. And at some point, you'll find that threshold where you are eating substantially more, but you're not necessarily doing more work. Yeah. Cool. So we'll probably cap your calories around that point for a while, and we'll just monitor it and see how it goes. Yeah. I find that way you kind of prevent these huge surpluses of 1,000 extra calories or whatever per day too.
No, and like when you're dieting, when you're eating in surplus, you have a lot of fuck around energy.
Oh yeah.
When you're in a diet and a calorie restricted, like every set means more. Yep. Because you only have so many. So let's make this shit count. When you got an extra 500 to 1,000 calories and you have all this energy. It's like, oh, okay, so if you do a couple sets of dumb shit, who cares? You got plenty of surplus energy.
Your whereas it's probably a higher quality too.
Exactly. Whereas if we're on a diet, like somebody's screwing around with all this stuff, by the time they get to the work that means something, they're already wore out. And then they get half-assed workouts in and they lose 40% muscle with their Ozempic.
Way to bring it back around.
Yeah. So.
No, yeah, we used to call that junk reps. Like, when we're dieting hard, we would do like 20, 24-week diets, real slow, progressive, and, that's a whole topic of its own, like how you progress instead of dropping all your calories at once. Because I watch guys, even that were heavily enhanced, lose huge amounts of muscle mass because they cut their calories from whatever it was before, 4,500 a day to like 1,200 a day, and it just waste away. They were walking around 280-pound behemoths in the off season. They end up competing as a middleweight at like 176 pounds. You're like, you did something wrong, because they cut all their calories. But I wanted to say there's something also to be said for when you get into quality reps, and especially if you focus on negatives and that kind of stuff, you have a certain micro injury that DOMs when you're sore. Your metabolism is probably 10, 12% faster, probably. People differ. So you're burning calories then, too. So you don't have to do them with 12 sets of 20 when, you don't have the resources to pull that off. You're probably still going to burn some calories from being sore because you're keeping the weights up and you're, at least in my world, I would always try to do some negatives and stuff like that. So.
That's all I got, guys.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where that came from over the years.
I don't know.
Bad advice. I love what you said about the weights are about weight. the sets that you do are about lifting something really heavy to show your body, hey, I expect you to hold on to some size and strength.
Yeah, I just never got the whole, why are we turning everything into cardiovascular activity? When, like, that can be just stupid and mindless. And it can be 75% of your training when you're losing weight. But you need that 25%. You need that signal to say, hey, this dude still wants to be big. And if you don't give that, it's going to go away. Your body, like you said, that cart's going to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just lift light weights in a cardiovascular sort of way, you're going to look like a marathon runner. You're not going to be jacked. Like there are no, that's the one I always use. Like people are, oh yeah, volume makes you jacked. Extreme volume. So they go
Too
from
far.
4 sets of 10 to 10 sets of 50. And, it's like if that volume made you jacked, like all these marathon runners would have like Tom Platz.
Yeah.
They'd just be dragging the carts of wheels. And it just does not work that way. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised that's still back around. More misinformation on social media.
Yeah, it's amazing what's still out there. And
the other thing I'd add too is that it makes a good argument for exercise selection then too. So for some people I have worked with, physique competitors, maybe they do straight bar deadlift in the off season and, as they're getting ready for a show, a lot of times I'll just switch them to a trap bar or something that mechanically, technique-wise is a little bit easier, but you're able to get a huge amount of load because it's a basic compound exercise. I usually tend to put those exercises early in their program when they have less fatigue, and I generally will program them for more performance. I even do this in the off season too, but 3 to 5 rep range, 5 to 8 rep range, you're going relatively heavy, but you're doing it when you're fresh, and you may, switch out exercises that are not as technically complicated either or that feel better, but you can still, because it's a full body exercise, yoke bar or safety bar squats instead of a straight bar or front squats or whatever, you can still get a lot of load on your system, and you're probably going to do some type of that exercise 3 days a week. And then we're going to monitor that, like Lonnie was saying, for performance. Our goal is to try to keep that performance as long as we can, just hold it at that position. And yeah, it's going to drop off at some point, most likely, but the longer we can hold that level of performance, that's probably your best indicator that you're holding on to a fair amount of muscle tissue.
It's a good point, Mike, too, about like modifying the movement because anybody who's dieted for that long and got down low single-digit % fat, everything feels like crap. Like you feel like hell. That is not the paragon of health. Niggling injuries, and you don't want to set those off with something. Yeah, you're fatigued. You're underfueled. Yeah, you do have to keep that in mind. I know we're kind of preaching keep the weight on. Keep the weight on.
You have to be smart about it, though. Yes.
Yeah.
Smart, yeah. Because injury is a real, it is a real risk when you're in that kind of unnatural state.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean start your chest workout with pec deck.
Yeah, or it's all pec deck.
Right, that's all pec deck today.
Or you see people go on these diets for shows, and they have, like, way in a caloric deficit, and they're like, well, I need to bring up my rhomboid minor, so I'm going to do a bunch of volume. It's like you have no calories to bring up anything.
No.
Like you're bringing nothing up.
You built that months ago. You built that almost last year.
Yes, if you needed that built, it should have been done months ago.
Should have been
built. Right now, you're just hoping to hang on to it. You're not building shit in a caloric deficit,
Yeah, and these internet gurus that say otherwise, they're full of it, or they're on drugs, or you don't pile on size in a huge negative calorie status.
No, it's just not possible.
No.
It's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
It's just common sense.
You'd like to think that we would make progress as a society over the decades, right? Where the stuff that doesn't work gets cut out.
Yeah.
But when everybody's a brand and they're always looking for that niche, they're going to bring up old crap and go against the grain, like you were saying last week, just because it's against the grain and it looks contrarian and it makes them look, I don't know, feel like they're courageous or special in some way. It's like, no, you're just wrong. And it was wrong then. It's wrong now.
Still wrong.
Still wrong. All right.
All right. Well, we can call it a little early. We got football this weekend. So I'm happy.
Is it preseason?
It is.
Ooh.
It is. Get to
I'm
start
almost done watching the quarterback series on Netflix.
That was really good. It was good. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a Vikings and a Kirk Cousins fan, which I get a lot of shit for, but I thought it was great. I really liked the show.
That's who benefited from that show the most. I think he has more fans now than, like, he's just a genuinely good dude. And man, he got killed.
Totally.
He got killed all season. Just hearing him cry all season, it's like, oh my God.
Oh. And then they just show the hits that he took too. Yeah. You're like, oh my God.
Well, yeah, that was it shows that side of the NFL that nobody sees.
Yeah.
Like, those guys were bruised and beaten to shit, like, every week. And he's talking about, if I can just get feeling good by Saturday night, I'll be good for Sunday and then start the process again. You know, you're just beat to shit every Sunday evening.
And if anyone's ever had a rib injury, it hurts so bad. I cracked my rib snowboarding years ago. It took me 6 weeks before I could even do almost any exercise at all other than like a leg extension.
Yep.
Just because any movement, breathing, sleeping, anything just hurts.
Sneezing was the worst. I tore my frickin' I tore my obliques and oh my God.
Yep.
So, but it'll be fun. And then the only other news I got is I'm the lightest I've been since I was under 30. I decided to lose some weight, and I'm down in the 230s. I'm going to be twink status. Yeah.
Twink?
Uh-oh.
It's time. My knees
this is all
feel
relative,
so good.
though. You know what?
Yeah.
This is all relative, because 230 was my heaviest off-season weight.
Hey, man, that's light for me. And it's not low 230s yet, but I saw that the other day. I was like, wow, I'm 230 something.
Damn.
And basically, I'm double dosing my Ozempic and doing lots of reps.
Yeah.
Basically, I just quit eating like an asshole. And, it's one of those things. It's like, man, I'm turning the page towards 50.
Right.
And you can't be 270 all the time.
No.
Yeah.
Does it feel good to be that
my joints feel amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my knees, it's like, I got new knees. And, I'm still able to go in and lift fairly heavy, and I have no goal as far as weight loss. It's like, let's just see what happens by not eating like an asshole. Just eating lots of vegetables and meat and, good foods. So, but,
cool.
So, all right, everybody. Until next week, we will talk to you then.
Right on.
See you.
Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community.
The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.